And welcome to this week's edition of The Mountain Gardener. Your host, Ken Lane. We're here every week talking about the landscapes of northern Arizona, and everything is actively, physically, dr- dramatically growing right now. You can almost watch them leaf out by the day. You're watching your perennials come up out of the ground. So, my peonies, it looks like they're growing. You could the next morning they are bigger and they're beautiful. They're not quite in flower yet, but they are actively getting their foliage up, and then they put the flowers on. Your trees, your shrubs, your lilacs are bloom. Things are actively growing. Now, I've been telling folks earlier in April, saying, "Oh, just wait, hold on, give plants time to leaf out." Some plants want the soil to be warm enough, and it was a cold winter. They were just sitting there hibernating. And so we were having people bring plants in that were obviously alive, and they're going, "Nope, it's dead. I don't want it." So it just didn't leaf out fast enough for them. And they're the warranty. We got them new ones, but still, be patient. Crepe myrtles don't like it. They don't like the cold. They want summer. Grapes do not like spring. They want it hot. Desert willows want it to be bright and sunny in their soil, their roots to be warm. Well, now we're kind of getting to the point where you got to start worrying. So, okay. So if plants are still sitting there kind of not budding, they don't have to be fully leafed yet, but you can see them going, "Oh, well, they're growing now." So if that smoke bush, which is a summer loving plant, doesn't have some foliage on it, probably the winter cold that we're seeing quite a bit of death and decay in the landscape this spring. And I think what happened was it was so cold from October through 2 weeks ago. It was winter. I mean, hard cold. It never was warm. Lots of snow, unusual amounts of water. So we had record amounts of moisture this last winter. Those are all things that can cause some issues for your plants. And so, if that probably what happened is they got cold or they root rotted. They literally sat there in the cold and the wet, and the roots rotted till they died. They died in their sleep, basically. And so, if they're not waking up at this point, yeah, probably you got to make the hard call. What you can do, you can tell if you take a branch and you take your thumbnail or a pocket knife and just scrape off the bark of one of those branches, and if it's light green, like green underneath the bark, that branch is alive. Give it time. If that branch is white or brown underneath that branch, at least that underneath the bark, that branch is dead. So that one, you might check it a couple places, but if that's a case, that branch is not going to come back. Or you can do the flexibility test. If the branch is flexible, it's alive. If it's brittle and it just snaps right off, that thing is dead. It's that branch, at least, is not going to come back. And so you might have to find, I had to replace a couple salvias or autumn sage. They were younger. I'd put them in last fall and they weren't quite mature enough, and they were buried underneath snow for way too long. And so they literally rotted right underneath. Their feet just rotted off. And so they can't make it. I'm going to have to replace those with either another one or something different. And so that's kind of go through the yard and see. Another one that I'm doing it in my own gardens, the grasses, ornamental grasses. We grow ornamental grass. These are big, showy, like shrubs, only they're big grass, not turf grass, not a lawn. We're talking about ornamental, showy grasses. And many of them make perennial of the year. Like coral forester has been that's the best perennial of the year for the country. They can be stunning. And we grow this prairie higher elevation. This is where grasses really do like to grow. They do well. They don't take that much moisture. You don't treat them like a lawn. You treat them like a shrub or a tree. So you put them on that drip system and you water them 1 or 2 times a week. And that's good enough. Give them a deep soak and they are good to go. Well, for my grass, I've cut them all back. And I just want all that brown leaf coming. I want that gone. So the new stuff coming up is fresh, vibrant green or vibrant blues, or I've even got red grasses. I've got some red sedge. It's just stunning. And so I've cut those back and then I fertilized them. And here's an insider tip that may really help your grasses. So I put some, of all things, okay, some manure over top of some of my grass. I've got some blue lime grass down by the pond. And so it was kind of it needed a lift. It just needed something, some oomph. And so I'd fertilized them with the all-purpose plant food, 744, and like I did everything. I think they might need just a little bit more. And so I took a couple bags of fertilizer, of manure, like barnyard manure. It's stinkless, it's odorless manure we sell here at the garden center. It's called barnyard manure. And I sprinkled some of that on top of those grasses, just around the edges. And boy, did it ever make a difference. Oh my goodness, that grass just loved everything about that. This is a very old landscape area. So this blue lime grass has been out there for a while, probably at least a decade. And so it's always looked good. And it would have looked good with no manure, but I fertilize it always with the same stuff. But that little extra step, I'll share that insider tip with you. If you got something that's looking maybe not as nice as it was, just to put some manure around the edge or those roots really up. I think what it did, it got my worms activated around the root system. So it aerated the roots. There's some nutritional value to manures. So it adds nitrogen, basically. Nitrogen is nitrogen, phosphorus, potash. That first number is nitrogen. That's what manure is. And that causes green growth, foliage, more leaves. And so that's what grass is. And so it just fed off that and really did. I mean, it was noticeable. We're talking a week later. Oh my gosh, what just happened? That's unusual. Well, my name's Ken. We're just friends talking over the back fence. And man, did that ever work for some of my ornamental grasses. I think your pampas grass would really benefit from that. Your coral foresters, your miscanthus, all your ornamental fescues, all these pretty grasses that are out there growing, just a few handfuls of barnyard manure can really up their game. If you've got some plants that are looking a little off, like I had a customer just before the show, they were dealing with, what was it? Heavenly bamboo, which is looking rough. Just didn't have a good head picture and kind of didn't look that good. The winter was hard on it. There, I didn't put manure. I just said, hey, put the all-purpose plant food. He hadn't fertilized it in a couple of years. And I think this one thing will really make a difference. Had another customer had half the tree kind of die. So it was leafing out, but not completely. And so part of the roots of this large tree, fruit tree, had been damaged from the winter. I think it was a winter in the cold. Part of the roots got rotted off. And so it was showing this in the top growth of the tree. So here, fertilize it with here we have a fruit tree food. So put the fruit tree food down. But in addition to that, because we have root damage on that plant, you could see part of the tree was not leafing out the way it should. On that one, I said, put the fertilizer down. And in addition, put humic, Humic, humic. So fertilizer feeds the top growth, the foliage, the fruits, the flowers. Humic feeds the bottom growth, the roots underneath. It stimulates or tickles the feet so they want to root out more out into the yard. So they're going to need to recover. They need to grow more roots underneath that plant so it can balance itself out. And it was obvious with this tree because part of it was damaged. That's that part of the roots are damaged. I would put the humic on the whole tree because the more roots we can get on this, the faster it recovers. And I would fertilize the whole thing because we want all of it to be robust and healthy. Few things, simple things, really make a difference in the garden and how they react to the gardens. And you, the gardener, we call these green thumbs, but really it's just taking a few steps to nurture those plants so that they are healthier, better, stronger, or recover if they're sick, helping them to be better. Okay, so a lot in store for this show. Be right back right after this.